The madness has begun. Yahoo leagues are open, and we're going to do an immediate look at the rankings that are there. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and as an Australian, I'm not allowed to say the word hello. So it's got to be, it's going on. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com. You can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_Beeble, on TikTok at redrock_Beeble, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. All through the summer, sports are fewer. What's the right word? It doesn't matter. Because with FanDuel, every day through the summer, every customer gets either a boost or a bonus every day. Simple as that. Go to FanDuel.com right now to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms. So give us a thumb, give us a bang, give us a double bang, give us a comment. We knew this day was coming soon. We were told Dan Titus told me that we were looking at August 8th. It is August 8th and the Yahoo site is open. Now, we can't do mock drafts yet, and that's okay. I have zero interest in doing a mock draft right this minute. Maybe we do one next week, but not that interested in it. What I want to see is sort of where the guys are ranked. And I've just seen this data about an hour ago, went in, looked at my numbers, which I'd finished projecting earlier this week, and let's just see what's different. Now, there are a bunch of different caveats to throw out here. Points leagues and different formats of points leagues can provide different numbers. Category leagues and roto and punting and all that stuff provides different valuations. I myself look at things a little bit different to a lot of people. I don't look at straight 9-cat numbers because I think it gives you false results. You know that I have weightings and -1 and that sort of stuff to try and get a better example, understanding variance of categories to work out, what I think are the best players. But it is worth diving in and taking a look at the guys that I think are way too high, the guys I think are way too low. And the other thing that is tough with Yahoo rankings is that they try to serve everybody. You might see a guy that's way too high or way too low, and you go, well, that's a points league one, and that's a category league guy. And it's really hard to be able to put out these numbers that serve everybody. You can't. It's impossible. And we can criticize things, and I will, but understanding that part of it is key, because you cannot serve everybody. You cannot put out a list that helps category leagues and roto leagues and punters and non-punters and points leagues all in one. You can't do it. So what the idea of, I guess, the initial Yahoo ranks is to put the names in an order in a draft, a starting point, and then we debate and go from there. Now, I haven't dug into huge numbers with all these players or anything like that. This is basically just where my rankings sit on these players, which again, I've used my initial category -1 values on it and seeing where the big differences are. I will also, as is a yearly tradition, throw this out there. I will never, ever, ever understand why Yahoo puts this stuff out unfinished. And I know there was going to be someone their finger is poised above the keyboard right now. It's okay, Josh, we know they're going to fix it. Don't worry about it. We know it's wrong. They're going to fix it. I do know that. I know that they will fix it. My point is, why is it out there the way it is? And therefore, when there are these things that have just been completely ignored in a ranking list, that always makes my trust in whatever else is happening in that list and what they base it on, I get skeptical. For example, I'm not going to talk about this now, but Reed Shepherd is ranked 541st. Right? Obviously, that will be changed. But if Reed Shepherd is ranked 541st, it means that they expect him to play 10 minutes total for the season. So that obviously isn't the case, meaning the other numbers, especially for the Rockets, don't really fit in, do they? Because that's obviously hasn't been balanced out. So that's where I start to go, where did all that come from? That is always going to be my major, because we can all have differences of opinions. I'll have a difference of opinion of Sadiq Bey being ranked in the 160s when he's not going to play this season. Don't know, you can debate that one. But putting out an unfinished or public, having an unfinished list with some of the rookies ranked and some not, I question a lot of the other, like the other process behind everything else. Yeah? But this is the major platform. This is the site where we look at and get a lot of data from. So we're going to dig into the initial Yahoo rankings. An immediate look at them. Because, we need to. It's imperative. At this point that we are, as for some reason that screen just remains black there. I don't know why that's the case. Okay, that was wild. I don't know why that was so long. We dig in and we'll take a look at sort of where we sit with this stuff and my initial thoughts. We'll start with Yahoo's top 24 players. And everyone will focus, understandably, I was going to say rightfully so. I'm not really sure it's rightfully so. I don't know that we need to pay that much attention to the first round. Everyone will pay attention to what's happening at the top. And at the top, they did it. They went there and they put Victor Wembanyama at number 1. I'll give you a spoiler. He's number 1 for me as well. Does that mean that I would necessarily pick him at number 1? That's debatable. I think it's 50-50. But he's ranked at number 1. Number 2 is Nikola Jokic. Hard to debate any of that for me, that those are the top 2. Whatever order you want, whatever. So Wemby, Jokic, 1 and 2. Doncic is at 3. And again, my evaluation of how we deal with the first and second round will come more into focus when I see if any team has an insane 2-game week in the playoffs, which does hurt a lot of players. And then I'll make adjustments based on that. And again, points versus categories and all that sort of stuff. But Luka at 3 is reasonable. It's totally okay. No problem with Luka at 3. And in a points league, you could make an argument that Luka goes at 1. I think that's reasonable as well. Because I believe he was the number 1 player in points leagues anyway, last season. I have Luka. My top 3 is actually exactly the same. Wemby, Jokic, and Luka at this point. At 4, they've got Shea. I don't have Shea at 4. I've got him a little bit lower down, but that's okay. Number 5, they've got Giannis Antetokounmpo. Again, points league bump. Category League Roto doesn't work. Category League Punty does. And then at number 6, there is Tyrese Halliburton, which I think is reasonable. Again, he had a disappointing second half to the season. I've got Halliburton around that area as well. I think I've got him at 8, so around that zone. Totally fine list. Like, that top 6 is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not egregiously wrong or right. It makes a lot of sense to me. And we'll get more into the depths of what you do in the first round without wasting our time on it. Because honestly, again, these are the elite of the elite. We're not making crucial decisions at a lot of this time. And the way that a lot of this stuff goes wrong in round 1 is a guy gets hurt that you don't expect. That's how that sort of happens. But they're the big names and we focus on them. The next grouping, number 7, Anthony Davis. I wasn't really sure that we'd see Davis here. I've got him at 5. That's all per game. I'm not taking into consideration risk of getting hurt or anything like that. So that's about right to me. The Jason Tatum one is a little bit interesting. I guess the argument could be made with Tatum doesn't get hurt yet. Knock on wood. We don't want him to. But honestly, I don't have him in the top 12 per game because on the way this team was constructed, he wasn't. He wasn't that player. Now, an absence of Porzingis probably for at least the first half of the season might help Tatum. And if he's the 14th best player and you take him at 8 or 9, who cares? It's fine. But he comes in at 8. Joel Embiid is at 9. Now, Joel Embiid, very clearly per game, is a top 5 player. That's how I have him projected out. But I said this in a video not long ago. I will not draft Joel Embiid in the first round. He's not a do not draft for me. He's not a do not draft. But recurrent knee surgeries on the one knee means that I am out at taking that risk. Now, he could stay healthy. That is possible for anybody. My injury thing is always about fluky injuries, not a persistently surgically repaired joint. That's where I start to get the problems. And he and another player who could be a first-round player, Kawhi, are the guys that I have that concern with. At 10 is Anthony Edwards. I don't get it. I don't understand why we would pick Anthony Edwards at 10 in category leagues. In points leagues, he might get there. But he hasn't. And I don't look at Ant's numbers and go, well, there's a very clear space here for this to push it. Now, maybe he's a 30-point per game scorer. Maybe. But he also might not be. I don't think I would want to take Ant at number 10. I love Trae Young at number 11. I think that's a fantastic spot for Trae. It's about exactly where I have him. And then 12 is Sabonis. And while on the surface I look at that and go, yeah, I don't know about that. DeMar DeRozan arriving could impact him. I've actually got him around that spot anyway. So I think that's pretty fair. I think all that makes a lot of sense, really. We're going to get into look at the rest of the top 24 in Yahoo's rankings in just a sec. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. We all have things that are busy in our lives. It's work, it's school, it's family, it's whatever else you're doing. And sometimes the pressures of this stuff can build up. Self-care can be one of those ways that you help alleviate those pressures. But we've got to also make sure we have the time for that. Therapy can be either a form of self-care or can help you work out prioritizations. How do you fit in the things that you need to do in order to do the other things that you got to do at the right level while maintaining health for everybody? So, if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's designed to suit your schedule. It's flexible. It's entirely online. You fill out a questionnaire. You go in there. They match you with a therapist. And if you don't fit and match with that therapist, well, they will match you up with another therapist free of charge. So head across to betterhelp.com/lockedonnba and never skip therapy day. When you do head to betterhelp.com/lockedonnba, you get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Like I said, I wanted to just get this show out as quickly as I could here, so I haven't gone full all out with presentation and graphics and that sort of stuff. I just wanted to get most of the information out as quickly as we can. Let's go through the remainder of the first two rounds, the top 24. Starting round 2, Yahoo's got Kyrie Irving sitting at number 13. I don't think Kyrie's ever going to be a first round sort of a player. I think 13 is too high for him. Not only does Kyrie have risks with injury and health, but I'm just not sure that even the per game number quite sits there. Roto pushes him higher. Points and head-to-head categories pushes him a little bit lower. I think that's possibly too high, but I still have him as a second-round guy. And this is what's really interesting. Number 14 is Steph Curry. Number 15 is Kevin Durant. These are the players who were always top 5 guys. And we saw Steph drop off quite a bit last season. Durant, weirdly, I just recorded the Suns season preview, had some weird drop-offs in his free throws last season. There's injury risk with these guys both being old. I think that this is reasonable. Now, Steph is going to have to take on a larger offensive role, but that increases his risk. I've actually got him 10 per game, but I think he probably is a second-round guy. I've actually got Durant way down below this, and I have to go in and actually have a look, because, again, this is my first pass on rankings as well as Yahoo, so we have a look at that, but I'm not certain how good I feel about Durant in the early parts of the second round. Don Mitchell, they've got at number 16. He was like a top 10 player last season. I think with Kenny Atkinson in town, the minutes will come down for Mitchell, and that's going to mean that he is not quite that top 10 guy. Totally reasonable there. Chet Holmgren comes in at 17. I don't agree with that. I think that Chet will play some more minutes, but I think Hartenstein's presence hurts in terms of field goal percentage, blocks, and rebounds. I think there's an impact there. And I just am not someone who's going to significantly overrate a blocks category. Now, you say, well, Josh, you've got Wemby at 1. That's true. But Wemby does a million other things, and he is probably even double the value of Chet in blocks. That's an important thing. I don't have Chet at 17. Number 18 is Devin Booker, who is going to lose some value if the Suns are actually going away from him being the primary ball handler. Because it's not like his usage or efficiency suffered last season. It just means he probably gets fewer assists. I still have him as a second round guy, but a little bit lower than that. And lastly, to finish off the top 24, the top 2 rounds for fantasy drafts, at number 19, it is Tangles, Tyrese Maxey. I'm not interested in that. Maxey was great last season to begin the year especially. Really good shooting numbers, blocks out of nowhere. That all fell away. And then even last season, once Joel Embiid was out, we didn't see Maxey return top 15 value in that period. And now Paul George is there too. I think that is... Look, it's fine. I don't think he's a very good player. I think he's more of a third-round guy, Tyrese Maxey, than a second-round player. Number 20 is the burner, Jalen Brunson. I do think there is going to be a hit, and I just recorded the Knicks preview show as well, so you'll see that tomorrow as I talk with Gavin Scholl about Brunson's usage and how it spiked basically in the middle of January and then stayed at 35% the whole way through, but it was at 27 before that. So I think this is fair for Brunson. I wouldn't want to go much higher. 21 is Damian Lillard. His shooting numbers just all fell away last season. Some of that is familiarity. Some of that is personal stuff. I do think there is a chance that he bounces back. He's totally fine here. Absolutely, totally reasonable. Number 22 is LeBron James, who we know that he just does the same thing every year. At some point, it will drop off. At a per-game basis, I've got him higher than this. He's going to be 40, man. I don't want to feel good about that body holding up all the way through, but at some point, it does. And in points leagues, this is probably a steal for LeBron at this spot. Number 23 is Scotland Barnes, who you'll be shocked to know I've actually got right about this area. I have some skepticism about Barnes and where the usage goes with Barrett and Quickly there for a full season. I've got a skepticism about Barnes's three-point shooting numbers. But this is like, if he's better than what I think, well, this actually turns into a steal. And you know that I am a pessimistic Scotty Barnes guy. So I've got him around this back-end second-round area. He could easily get better than this. And the number 24 is DeJounte Murray. And I thought that I'd be much lower than DeJounte Murray, but I've actually got him early third round in this similar area as well. That team still, I don't get. There's still a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I don't think necessarily, people say, well, he's away from Trae Young. Yeah, but he's got CJ and Zion and Ingram, and that's not a great scenario. But we will find out exactly how all that plays out for DeJounte, but I think this is reasonable. I don't think it's much higher than this. It's probably a little bit too high for me, but it's not an egregious area, I don't think, for DeJounte Murray at that end of the second round. And again, I am not a DeJounte Murray guy, I think, as most of you would be pretty well aware. So that's the top 24. What are we going to look at next? I'm going to go through 30 players who I think have been pushed up too high. Now, I could easily tell you that this guy is ranked 250th and I've got him at 300th, but what's the point? That doesn't help many people. So most of these guys are standard league or standard league adjacent players that I think are probably pushed up a smidge too high, or in some cases 60 spots, but we'll talk about that. This is what I talk about when we get later on to talk about the fact that there's a bunch of rookies who aren't ranked. My mate Reed Shepard's at 541, Bazalis is 528, Carlo Makovic, who, watch out, could be the Pelicans starting center, and I've been saying this for weeks. I think he's a standard league option. He's at 521. This is how I know that, you might say, well, why Dan Titus does this. I know that Dan didn't put these rankings out like this because he, like me, is massively into Carlo Makovic, and he wouldn't have him at 521. Ron Holland is at 553. Ricochet is at 465. Dillingham's at 530. Klingen's at 469. Bub Carrington's at 470. Tijan Slan's at 551. Well, maybe that's fair enough. So that's like, we can see that and say, well, the rookies haven't been ranked. But then I go, well, why is Superman sitting at 104? I really like Khalil Ware. I think it's a really good spot. I don't think that he enters the season as a starter. He could, but I don't think he does. And I think he is absolutely going to be unless things change a lot, and once we get more clarity, he is fine as a late pick. At 104, that's a little rich for me. So is Steph Castle at 130. And again, let's throw the caveat out there. If you're in a standard league, 12 teams, 10 active roster spots, once you get to that, even round 10, but definitely round 11, all bets are off. Do whatever you want. Take a flyer on guys. That, my motto. As the great Charlie Sutton once said, shop early and avoid the rush. Grab the guy you want. It doesn't matter. Wait till round 15, 14, 13, whatever. Get him around 11. Doesn't matter. Get him in 10. It's fine. In saying that, I see no path for Steph Castle at 130. Maybe I'm just completely off, because I've heard it on many different podcasts, fantasy and otherwise. People go, Castle's going to have a real shot at Rookie of the Year, so they're going to be testing out him as a point guard and the ball in his hands. I go, are they? So Trey Jones is going to play 0 minutes? And Chris Paul's going to play, 20? Look, the idea is they think that Steph Castle will be playing point guard this season, and I look at it and go, there's probably 0 minutes available for him to do that in a regular night. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And he does not have a fantasy-friendly game. So that, to me, whatever. Again, 130, take your flyer. So I just wanted to highlight ones that I just didn't really get. Like 134, Marvin Bagley. What? Why? Why would I do that? Why would I take Marvin Bagley at 135? I never would. Literally never. Nick Richards, 127. Was Nick Richards even 127th last season when Mark Williams was out all season? I don't think so. Would never touch that one. 101 is Zach Edey. Now, Zach Edey will probably start for Memphis. Zach Edey is going to see a sizable drop in his usage from college. Again, 101 is just too early. I just don't want to do it at that spot. And then 111 is Aaron Nesmith, the man who does nothing apart from foul. Good player, generates no stats. Absolutely zero interest in taking him. Again, if you take someone within the top 120, they are a starter on your fantasy team, and I do not think that Aaron Nesmith is worthy of that title. I'll have plenty of other fantasy analysts on this show throughout the preseason and off-season to debate their thoughts on guys, including the big fella Dan Titus. These are just the ones that at the moment, my early look at it, that I don't agree with. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. I love sports. I love sports so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. So this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there is something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Also, check out all the sports that are cracking over there. There's a lot going on. And there's a lot of futures that are up on the NBA as well. So check those out. Season win totals as I tell you about FanDuel. But the boosts are there. They're ending, coming up in a month or so. Get involved. Okay, so like I said, we're looking at the guys that I think are too high. Who is up on these lists that I just don't agree with? And as always, we will have differing opinions. Me, you, your friend, your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, the other analysts. Everyone will have a different opinion on certain guys. I would always strive to give you my explanation as to why I think that. Not vibes. I'm like, he probably doesn't feel like that. Just a real reason. That's what I attempt to do on this show. The reason that Kelly Olynyk is at number 100 completely escapes me. He is going to be Jakob Poeltl's backup. He will play, I guess, 20 minutes a night. And again, that is a round 10 selection that I just will not do. I like Kelly Olynyk from fantasy. There is no starting role here for him. 107 is Ayo Dosunmu. Now, it is possible that Zach LaVine is traded and Dosunmu becomes a starter. Very, very possible. I also am not sure how high his actual upside is on a team that now does have Josh Giddey. Whatever does come back in a Zach LaVine deal, plus Kobe White, to begin with, Dosunmu is not going to start unless LaVine is traded. So again, too early. Lay's pick, go for it. Bojan Bogdanovic sits at 129. He's on the Nets. They need players, but I'm not sure I would love the Nets running out a front court of Cam Johnson and Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan needs a lot of the ball to really have good fantasy value. And while he'll get a chance to do that, he's not the number one option because that's Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas also, just coincidentally, is the number 2 and number 3 option on that team. So I outside of being a 3 streamer, I don't really get it. Now, these next 3, there are reasons I've got them on the list and reasons why I get that they shouldn't be on the list. Number 91 is Clint Capella. I do think that Clint does not play more minutes than Okongwu this season. Whether he starts or not, I have no idea. And I will be absolutely drilling Brad Rowland again when we talk Hawks. But Capella keeps dropping off. Everything dropped off a little bit more last season. Minutes were down. And I'm not doing it at 91. I'm also not doing it for Mitchell Robinson at 99. Not only has his production fallen away in terms of field goal percentage and anything that's not rebounds and some blocks, and even the blocks have fallen off. Yeah, he will play more minutes because Isaiah Hartenstein is not there, but his ankles have multiple ankle surgeries issues. I don't feel good about that. And he's just a very, very narrow scope player. And then Brook Lopez at 77. Brook Lopez's numbers under Doc Rivers were terrible. Glenn nuked a lot of what he does for fantasy. Was it Glenn? Was it age? I don't know, but you know what I do know is that both of those factors have not gone away. Because Glenn is still there and Lopez is still old. So while Brook is fine, around the 100, outside the top 100, I'm not doing it at 77. I don't believe in him at that spot. 2 guys, again, who fall into my flyer territory, but I just want to highlight that I'm not super interested in them. Number 135 is Bilal Coulibaly for Washington. Now, Bilal might start on that team. He also might not. It might be Poole and Brogdon, and there's Bub Carrington, and there's Kispert, and there's a bunch of other players who can be there. And Bilal does sort of need a few guys out of the way, and percentages I'm not really confident with, and usage I'm not confident with. Absolutely, totally cool to draft him, but the way that it comes out rankings-wise, not remotely close to me there. And then Keldon Johnson, no way. Keldon is a bad category league player. He slumped second half of last season, and then they brought in Harrison Barnes. This is 3rd year for Jeremy Sohan. Johnson's not going to start. He just isn't. I don't want to do it. Points leagues, I get it, but even then, I also don't because I wouldn't pick him there. Dennis Schroeder is at 113. Schroeder is an international ball wizard, and he's the most annoying player in the NBA, basically, to watch when he plays in the NBA. At the moment, he is playing in Brooklyn. So you would say, well, he'll be their starting point guard. Yep. But what if Ben Simmons actually does play? Like, I don't have any... I was going to put Simmons on this list as a guy that maybe was too low, because I just don't know what to make of Ben Simmons. But also, if Simmons plays, Schroeder's got zero chance of hitting this. And that, again, is a draft pick that suggests that you would have him as a starter, and I would not have Dennis Schroeder as a starter on my fantasy team. And of course, we're going to go into it. At number 49, it's the big fella, Nikola Vucevic, who... people think that I was just so egregiously bad in my takes on Vooch last season. Vooch came into last season with a pre-rank of like 25, and I said, no, I want him in the 50s. And Vooch finished like 52nd, and he was actually dreadful on the court. So I would say that was like legitimately just bang on with Vooch. Now, I will say this about Vucevic this season. No DeRozan, he probably does get more usage. I'm not confident in any of his shooting numbers or block numbers. I also think that there is just a gigantic risk of him being traded away or just outright benched at some point because he is now bad. If he starts and plays 33 minutes and stays in Chicago all season, he will probably be better than 49. I'm not certain any of that is true, though. At 63 is Michael Porter Jr. One of the big strengths of Michael Porter Jr. is not turning the ball over, and I don't want a strength of my player to be the absence of something. I think his upside is relatively capped. It's like efficiency with points and some threes, and I'm not doing that in round 6. 80s, 90s, totally fine. Like I said, I just talked Suns with Brandon Clean, and we don't think that Tyus Jones is going to be a starter minutes player. Will he start the games? It seems that way. But I don't think that Tyus Jones is a starting caliber NBA point guard. And I don't think that he's playing 30-plus minutes a night for the Suns. So I am not taking him at pick 105. He will get you nice assists. He never scores, and it'll be worse in Phoenix than it was in Washington. He can get steals at times. I think that he's jumped the shark from being a underrated backup into being an overrated starter. So I wouldn't take him at 105. Bob Portis at 103, absolutely not. Portis looked pretty bad, I thought, last season. That requires injuries for him to jump into that spot. It's really limited what he does. Again, late pick, sure. 103, no. You'll blanch at me saying that Denny Avdia at 137 is too high. And in a points league, I agree that this is not right. Like, in a points league, he's totally okay. And again, in category leagues, you take him at 137, go for it. Totally cool. It's a late round pick. But I don't think that the situation for Avdia is better this year than it was last year. I think it is materially worse. Materially worse. He had a nice 6 to 8 week stretch on a team with a bunch of guys not there. And I am not bought in on Denny. Ingram's at number 60, Brandon Ingram. And you'll say that's about where he's normally been. Yes, but the addition of DeJounte Murray does complicate things because it does take the ball out of Ingram's hands, and the man never gets defensive stats. He never takes threes. He's hurt a lot. 60 is just not the risk that I'm taking. And then his former teammate at number 72, Jonas Valanciunas. Now, I do think that Valanciunas is going to be much better in Washington than he was in New Orleans. I don't think he's a 30-minute-a-night player, though. I think he's like 26 to 27. And we're also at a stage where he is older, and maybe that level just never fully gets back. Now, I am very much aware that 72 for Valanciunas, it could actually end up being an okay spot. But the way that my current projections sit, he's well below that. So is Naz Reid at 94. I don't get it. Naz Reid is still a backup in Minnesota. For all of the criticisms that Rudy Gobert got in the playoffs, Naz Reid was worse. For most of the playoffs, his defense made him basically unplayable. And unless there are injuries, he will still remain a backup. Also remember that when Towns got hurt last season, Naz Reid was still a backup. He's a really good player that people get excited about. He hypes everyone up. The vibes are really good with him. I don't want to take him in the top 100. I also don't want to take Miles Bridges at 51. Part of the way that Bridges elevated some of his numbers last season was just insane volume because everybody was out, including the Melo Ball. Now, we could make an argument that Ball being there means easier looks and higher percentage for Bridges. That is possible. Or maybe Bridges had a one outlier efficiency season a few years ago and has never really replicated that. For him, I think he's more of a 70 to 80s guy versus a top 50 player. So I wouldn't be taking him there. And lastly, on the list of guys who are too high, Shaden Sharp at 109. He has done nothing so far to show me that he is worthy of that spot. He could be, but their rotation is not clear. And Sharp, so far, scores inefficiently. That's all he does. And that's not a player that I want to be a starting caliber guy on my fantasy squad. Number 121 is Grayson Allen. Now, Allen was awesome last season, but that role is gone. It is not there anymore. He's not starting and playing 33 minutes a night in Phoenix. Not taking a three-point specialist there. Aaron Gordon at 128. I look at that one, and my rankings have him a little bit lower, but I think it's actually totally reasonable, especially in a points league. Number 40 for Jarrett Allen. I think he's more of a 55 to 60 guy. They did extend him, but it is clear to everybody for me that Mobley at center is the best option. And much like I mentioned with Donovan Mitchell, I think that we will get the minutes switching a little bit with the new coach in Kenny Atkinson. Austin Reeves at 76. He could pay off there. I'd be more happy with him in the 90s. And then 61 is Mikal Bridges. That, to me, assumes that Mikal Bridges goes back to being the exact same guy he was in Phoenix, and I don't think he will. I think he'll be somewhat better than he was in Brooklyn, but I don't think that a fifth-round selection for Mikal is making enough sense for me. On the guys that are ranked too low, I don't have as many. Again, I could have just put that list of rookies, but I do understand that they're going to adjust them. Like Shepherd is not going to remain at 540. But to be honest, most of those rookies, I'm not drafting anyway. I'm not drafting Reed Shepherd. I'm not drafting most of Ron Holland. I'm not getting anywhere near drafting those players. So I understand that'll be fixed. But I did want to highlight one thing, because Alex Sarr is at 540. Now, he sucked in Summer League. Absolutely. I think he's probably, him and Zach Edey, as much as I didn't like Edey at 101, a rookie that was ranked, I think they're probably the two rookies that I would consider drafting with between 100 and 120. Sarr at 540 is obviously comical. It's obviously comical that Ja Morant sits at 312. Why? I have no idea. Ja is going to go in the 20s in points leagues. He's probably going to go 25 to 30 in category leagues, and that will be too high. But I do think there's a world where Ja's category ranking is career best this season. That is obviously a stupid number. Kevin Porter Jr., as much as I don't like the bloke for many reasons, 351 is not realistic. He's on the Clippers, and honestly, he could start. James Harden's going to start, and Terrence Mann is there, and Kawhi is there, but then it's Derek Jones Jr., or is it Norm Powell, or is it Kevin Porter, or is he a 28-minute-a-night hybrid guard off the bench? He won't have the ball the way he did in Houston, but I think 351 is just, it's stupid, clearly. I think Taylor Hendricks starts for Utah, and he's ranked at 298th. Absolutely, he is a flyer pick for me. I've got him ranked about 130, I think. Dyson Daniels, could he start for Atlanta? Well, maybe. It's maybe him or Bogdanovic. Regardless, I think he plays close enough to start his minutes with good assists, rebounds, and steals. Absolutely not a player that's outside the top 250. He's inside the top 150 for me. And then Marcus Smart at 221. Injuries hurt him last season, but that's suggesting in 16-team leagues we're not drafting Marcus Smart, and that is, again, search deep into your soul and ask yourself the question, would you draft Marcus Smart in a 16-team league? And you're going to say yes. At 193 is Scoot Henderson. Now, you'll tell me that Scoot was bad last season. I'll say you're right. He was for most of the season. I think he was also the 100th ranked player post-All-Star break and put up decent scoring, improved his shooting, shot 33% from three, and had really good assist numbers. He also might come off the bench for this team, which would be insane, but he could. But this is a very, very common pattern. Rookie point guard sucks. Terrible. Worst player in the NBA. Gets better as their rookie season goes on. Puts up good numbers in March or April, and you go, well, is it real or was it fake? And then in year 2, they look very different. And in year 3, they look very, very good. So this is the Darius Garland after his rookie season type scenario where you just go, well, he has to be a last round pick. He has to be. Not a guy that we leave on the wire in a 16-teamer. Colin Sexton at 141. Just can't explain it. He's going to start. He was top 100 last season, and I think he actually plays more this season. 150 is Chris Middleton. Now, I have no interest in Chris at 40, 50, 60, 70, coming off bilateral ankle surgery, but 150 is basically the last pick in a standard draft. Of course I'm taking him. Of course, he was actually pretty good in the playoffs. He might not even be ready for the start of the season, which would be pretty par for the course for Middo, but 150, come on. J'Anthony Melton at 200. I don't think Melton starts for the Warriors, but I also know that if he plays 26 minutes, he beats that number. 176 is Jeremy Grant. Now, the Ides of March gets him every year. Damn those curses. Every year. At some point, it changes. Or maybe it doesn't. But again, what I do know is that Jeremy Grant is a draftable player, not an undraftable player. And 182 is PJ Washington. Similar to Grant, we might have our issues with him. The inconsistencies. In fact, yeah, he's a Gattuso legend. But this is, again, suggesting in a 14-teamer that we just say, don't worry about PJ Washington. We'll take, let me find, it's one of the more random guys who sits in like the 170 or 180 zone. Let's have a look. What other player sits in that area that I don't agree with? Like, would you take Buddy Hield at 149? Ahead of D'Anthony Melton? Absolutely not. Would I take Jaden McDaniels? Oh, that's a debatable one. Terrence Mann at 185? Nope. Wouldn't do that. DeAndre Ayton's at 88. He could get traded. There is a risk there. But again, no one cared about Portland at the end of last season. This man was dropping top 30 numbers. A lot of guys were out, and they did draft Donovan Clingan. And this maybe is the last chance for Ayton in Portland to put up good numbers. He might do it at another team, I don't know. But at 88, I'll snap that up every day of the week. So will I do that with Isaiah Hartenstein at 96? He might come off the bench, but he played 25 minutes a game last season, so I think he's at least doing that. And now he doesn't have Tom Thibodeau handbraking his usage. Easy pick. Onyeka Okongwu, undraftable according to this ranking, 164. I don't know whether he starts. He saw a weird drop in his block numbers last season. He was also better than you think he was, and he has to be a draftable player. OG Anunoby's at 115. I thought that people would overrate OG this season. I thought people would look at him in the 60s. And I'd be like, I don't want to do that. But at 115, yeah, easy. I'm not taking OG Anunoby behind Kelly Ware as a starter for a fantasy team. And I do like Kelly Ware. 158 is Jeremy Sohan. Year 3 for him. Started to actually figure some stuff out into the season. Not super high on him. I just think he's better than that. And at 108 is Jakob Poeltl, who is still really good. And he's going to start. Maybe he only plays 26 minutes. But if he plays 29, he's probably a top 60 player. And that's, again, really good value. And you'll see there's names. Hartenstein, Ayton, Okongwu, Poeltl. The nice little grouping of centers, where last year we did have that as well, just with different names, towards the back end of drafts that we're able to grab. The last list of guys that I think are ranked too low. Now, this one is very specific for a category league. If you're in a points league, you don't draft Alex Caruso. But in a category league at 102, I think you do. I think he's like an 80 sort of a player. Easy money. If it's a Zubats for the Clippers, not only is Paul George not there, so that's usage to go his way. Last season, it was Daniel Tice and Mason Plumlee both backing him up. This season, it's Mo Bamba. This, I think, will be the season that we get 30-plus minutes from Zubats. And again, a center that's at the back end of a draft that I will snap up. Number 156 is Brandon Podziemski. I believe he will start for the Warriors. They seem to view him as untouchable. How much of that is real, I don't know. But that is, 156 is bang on the last pick in a standard league draft. Has to be earlier than that for me. 119 is Dan Gafford. Now, I was very, very ready to come into this and look at all the rankings and say, man, you guys have got Gafford way too high. Lively's going to be the starter. I'm out on Gafford. And I look at this and go, well, actually, 119 is crazy. Why is he so low? I guess they've looked at it similar to me and thought that he's going to come off the bench. And I do believe that Lively will outplay Gafford. But I still think that Gaff could at least push the top 100. Much like, guess what? It is another center. The big fella Walker Kessler. We just did the Jazz preview show. You can go watch it. It's out already. Leif Tulane is telling us that he thinks that Kessler's going to start the year as the starter. And 125, again, Khalil Ware, sorry to that man and his family, picked 2 rounds ahead of Walker Kessler. No, I'll take Walker there. I had no interest in Walker as a second or third rounder last year, and I was very vocal about that. This one's really easy. And I think Emmanuel Quigley's a third round-ish player, and he's outside the top 50 at the moment. Snag it. Love it. Happy to do that. really screaming the Tyrese Maxeys from last season to me, where Maxey was going in the 50s and ended up as a top 20-ish player. I think quickly maybe you can do that. Shout out to Kentucky guards. And that's it. That's my first look as the bloody black screen of death comes up again for whatever reason. Not sure why. Apologies. You don't get to see my beautiful head. Beautiful head. That's what you used to call me in high school. We're going to have more shows coming. I've already recorded Knicks preview and Suns preview. They'll be out over the next 2 days. But tell me, what did you think about my evaluation of those rankings? And what did you think of the Yahoo ranks that are out now? Understanding that I know they will fix Ja Morant and Alexa and Reed Shepherd. I know there will be adjustments. Guys, not yet, because you got to thumb it up first, but then we'll be done. Thumb it up, comment, all that stuff. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.